Good morning, all. As we enter into this service, let me remind those of you in the sanctuary, now would be a good time to silence your cell phones. And those of you participating via Zoom, you have been muted by our host. Also, be advised that this service is being recorded and, with the exception of joys and concerns, will be published online. Finally, if you wish, take a moment to arrange your own chalice at home. Healing, a subject approached by many methods throughout human existence. In our era, we have rediscovered and expanded our perspectives widely. Mindfulness meditation and meditation generally are considered mainstream, not to mention yogic practices. Today, we will encounter the practice of Reiki. I know very little about this subject and will be interested in hearing more. After all, we are Universalist Unitarians, where our questions are answered with more questions. Could I invite you to light the chalice this morning? Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Marcia, thank you so much. Marcia will light the chalice here in the sanctuary. Those of you at home are invited to light your own chalice now. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Thank you, Marcia. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind our remote participants to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with us as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. Join us in singing the opening hymn, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, number 8. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. Our UUCC sanctuary sits on land that the Salinan and Chumash indigenous peoples historically inhabited. We honor their contribution to this region and give thanks for this opportunity to gather in faith on their unceded territory. Let us respect their legacy and protect their history as we occupy this sacred space. As Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation run by the democratic process. We invite speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around two principles. The fourth principle, we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We recognize that we are privileged to be free, to pursue life beyond mere survival, to search for truth and meaning, to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression. And the seventh principle, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The spirit of life, our oneness, the process of life, the creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. My name is Ted Key, and I am your worship associate for this morning's service. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning. Let's see, any visitors today? Not in the sanctuary, on Zoom? Okay. If you are not on the mailing list, please visit the UUCC website at uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all our activities. Members and friends, please check out What's Happening, the e-blast sent to you every week. This is a great way to keep up to date with our latest news. If you wish to see this or any of the past Zoom services, the recordings can be found on the UUCC website and on Facebook. The membership committee invites non-members to consider joining the UUCC. Please contact Diane DeMarco or a person on the board if you're interested. The board members present, please raise your hands. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of this community as well as a promise to which we aspire. Let us now sing the affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help, and to help, and to help one another.
We set this time aside for any announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. If something needs more explanation, contact the person after the service. If you'd like to make an announcement, raise your hand when Andy and I call you, call your name, step up to the podium or unmute yourself, then speak. Any announcements here? Dolores, please.
Okay, this is next, let's say February 21st. We're going to have a board retreat, and it's also a congregation-wide retreat. Okay, so the first half in the morning is for the board only, and then the congregation will come at 1 o'clock with your own lunch. And it'll be a very nice retreat. In the second half, it'll be Sue Davis and Diane DeMarco presenting topics. So please come. And if you need any more information, let me know. Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's at Camp Ocean Pines. It's always something I think about.
Okay. All right, any other announcements? Diane, come on up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you some information for any one of you that this may apply to, or anyone you know. CapTel is for caption telephone. They're giving out free telephones for anyone who might be hard of hearing. They need to be a landline, but they help tremendously. And if you're interested, there are brochures in the back of the church.
Anyone else? Yeah. Jeff.
I'm going to apologize a little bit because this is a bit self-serving, because I left my umbrella in the back right about there, and if anybody found it, please let me know. I'd love to get it back. Oh, good. See? Where there's an umbrella. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate. Aha! It has manifested itself. Thank you very much. I love the law of return around here. Thank you.
Good morning. This is the first of many, I'm sorry, but it is. We got our essays Friday for the start of the scholarship program. I've read 7 already. We have 20 applicants. We are in the process. The first section of this process is to pick 10 people each, and then we vote. Whoever has the most votes goes to the next level, and then the interviews, which are going to be in person this year for the first time in 2 years, 3 years, March 9th at the school. So just keep us in your minds and your pocketbooks, and we'll be fine.
Any other announcements from the sanctuary? Yes, Mr. Andy.
Just a reminder that we are in the guest at your table period now, collecting monies for that. If you need a box, I can provide a box for you to put your coins in, or else you can write checks and give cash too. We have a guest, or we'll have a guest from the UUSC speak to us in April, at that time, I'd love to be able to hand over our collection to them. Second announcement, the men's group will be meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Not exactly sure where or how, but there'll be an email going out about that.
And anybody out there in Zoom land, Andy?
And no hands are raised in Zoom, so back to you, Ted.
All right, thank you. Next week, Catherine Ryan Hyde, a local author of international renown, will present Is It Kind? Exploring the difference between being nice and being kind. We take this time to celebrate all those who are having a birthday this month. Birthdays are special, a day when we celebrate your entry into this world and honor your existence. If you have a birthday this month, please raise your hand. When Andy and I call on you, please reveal your special date. Any February babies in here? No February babies? How about out in cyberspace? Any Feb?
No one who's willing to admit.
Okay. This birthday candle honors all our friends and family members who are also celebrating birthdays this month. Happy birthday. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life. Express a gratitude or perhaps offer an acknowledgement, but please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and concerns which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community. Please join in singing the response.
May our words of joy and sorrow find solace in our hearts.
The first reading is an excerpt from The Energy Cure, Unraveling the Mystery of Hands-On Healing by William Bankston. What I am sure of through personal experience is that this kind of healing is a natural system, which is why it's also an imperfect one. Sometimes I can help and sometimes I can't. What I endeavor to do is to offer patients the whole spectrum, metaphorically white light, in hopes they can subtract from it what they need in order to return to health. That's different from my healing them. Though out of habit, I still use that word. It's also why I'm always surprised when patients thank me for restoring them to health. While those were my hands moving around, I never feel as if I was the healer. But is it really necessary for me to tell you these things? In a national survey, 40% of all Americans admitted to having had at least one profound mystical experience that took them beyond time and space, with many others perhaps too shy to report such experiences. That was touching the source. And the source doesn't pay attention to national borders. In countries where the spiritual is woven more firmly into daily life, the numbers are likely to be much higher. My hope is that all take away an expanded sense of the resources offered by the universe, along with a greater awareness of their own potential in calling upon that abundance, not only for healing, but for all aspects of life. The possibilities are infinite, the limitations are our own, and we need not faith, not belief, but trust. Let us join in a time of meditation, of prayer, and of silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles, and in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepened understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let us enter into the stillness. Today, may there be peace within. May you trust your highest power that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance. It is there for each and every one of you. Amen. The second reading is quotes from Reiki's founder, Mikao Usui, from 1920s to 1920s, translated from the workbook Reiki Ryoho Hikai, discovered in the late 1990s. Each of us has the potential of being given a divine gift, which results in the body and soul becoming unified. A great many people will experience the blessings of the divine. Through it, the human being will first be made healthy, and then peace of mind and joy in life will be increased. It can be called the art of spiritual healing. However, it can also be called the art of physical healing. The reason for it is that any part of the physical body of a practitioner may radiate the energy and light, particularly from the eyes, mouth, and hands. Unlike psychological therapy, hypnotism, and other mental healing modalities, no consent nor esteem is required, not a single suggestion is given. Moreover, it matters little whether you may doubt, avoid, and deny that. For instance, there is a positive effect on those who lack consciousness, such as infants and/or seriously ill patients. Barely 1 out of 10 people trust and esteem my art of healing before they experience it for the first time. Most people come to trust suddenly after having received treatment once and acknowledged its effect. Please join us in singing "I Brought My Spirit to the Sea," number 4.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace. Some whisper calmed my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that loomed against the sky. I touched each wandering, careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. Upright I rose from bended knee to meet the asking ears.
Today's sermon is titled "Reiki as My Spiritual Path," to be delivered by Jessica Miller. Jessica Miller lived most of her early life in various places in Massachusetts, coming to California around 2000 and to Cambria around 2010. After learning Reiki in 1992, she has trained over 5,000 people in Reiki, most recently in her own style of Reiki, Reiki Explorer. She has trained and taught Reiki throughout the United States and Japan, and wrote Reiki's Birthplace, a site guide to Kurama Mountain. Jessica?
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, here and online. I wanted to talk to you about Reiki. I've been talking about Reiki nonstop for the last 30 years, but somehow talking to you is still incredibly special. This is the first time I've really talked about it from my perspective as a UU, what this was like. So Reiki is not a religion. It's basically you turn on the power of their hands. There's some Reiki ideals that involve just saying you'll be a nice person. But then it's really just giving people that direct experience of what is it like to be a healer and to touch the world. So I wanted, as my community, as my UU community, I wanted to share with you something of my story, of something how the holistic healing art of Reiki has become a central part of my spiritual life, and how being a Unitarian Universalist has given me the confidence to be a spiritual explorer and follow my own path. Along the way, I'll tell you a little bit about Reiki and help you experience some, whether you're here or online. But my goal is to share my story and perhaps validate part of yours. And so even though it's part of Reiki I've been doing for over 30 years, it is an aspect of my connection to Reiki I rarely speak about because it is the most personal, and it's really the hidden core of why I do what I do. So I often talk about how Reiki is a form of hands-on healing anybody can use, about how many people I've trained over the years, about how many millions of practitioners there are worldwide, how many hospitals, including even in the French hospital, has a volunteer program for Reiki practitioners, about attempts to study Reiki scientifically. All of that is out. We can do several dozen talks on Reiki. It will be fine. But this is the one I wanted to do today. So I wanted to focus on what Reiki has meant to me as a UU and as a spiritual explorer trying to make sense of the spirit of the unseen world. As a child, I grew up in Beverly, Massachusetts, and I was right next to the far more famous Salem, Massachusetts, that was over the bridge. I was intrigued by psychic experiences, and I always had friends that were more adept at them than I was. Salem, Massachusetts back then, even though it had its own official witch, was nowhere near as metaphysically oriented as it is today, but it's just interesting to see how things change over time that way. But many of my early experiences were not spectacular. It was the thinking of someone that you haven't spoken to forever right before they call. Knowing what was going to be for dinner, as if you had a conversation with somebody and then realizing that conversation could not have occurred. And just occasional bits of knowledge, just things you know without ever having been told when you're connected to someone. And then sometimes too, that sense of divine presence, be it at a church service, or like a Christmas service, or if when you're in a sacred place looking at the ocean and just feeling that sense of divine connection. And the world divides into those for whom the psychic spiritual experiences are an ordinary part of life, and those who are certain they are all fabrications and delusions, and both groups stare at each other and say, clearly you are not paying attention to reality. But the vast majority of people are like myself, people that are in between, people that have some experiences and some science viewpoint and are trying to figure out how to weld the world together and are looking, and like myself, a lot of other people, we all look outside. We look to books for answers. We look around us. We look for validation in the world around us. So I read books trying to find answers to make sense of my experience, and that those experiences those of people around me were having. But I didn't really find what I wanted in any of that. They were all either way too flamboyant or not quite, most of them were way too flamboyant. But I really had a deep belief. One of the things that really set into my mind that there really is more of the world than meet the eye was when I was in the Girl Scouts. And we had planned a camping weekend. It was going to be great at this little camping, one of the Girl Scout camps they had out there. We were all excited about it. And Bruce Swegler was the weatherman. And he was determined it was going to be rained out. It was going to be rained all weekend. It was always in the news. But there was also a human interest story going on at the same time, that Lori Cabot, the official witch of Salem, said it was not going to rain that weekend. She was having an outdoor event. It was not going to rain. Everything would be fine. And so this bandied back and forth for several days on the news. And I'm delighted to say I had a lovely weekend camping that weekend, a lovely time camping that weekend, and it did not rain. And so that was just a really wonderful validation of that. My father was Protestant, my mom Catholic. Neither of them were particularly religious, but when they had 2 kids, they figured they should give them some kind of religious education. And so we dabbled in different churches. We went to the Baptist church, we went to Episcopal church, we went to a Catholic church, we went to all these places. And this is back when I was living in Beverly, but nothing was quite felt right. And nothing felt right to them either, because they're the ones deciding where we're going to go. And I didn't know what my inner truth sense was tuned to, but it was not conventional Christianity. To this day, unless I'm in a UU church or possibly Unity, I usually judge any church service I attend by how much of the time do I spend mentally arguing with the sermon in my head. If I don't argue, it's obviously must be a good sermon. We're good. So then we found the North Shore Unitarian Universalist Church in Danvers, and it was a revelation to just be able to relax and be myself, to be able to admit both doubt in traditional religion and belief that there really was something out there. And it just gave me a sense of permission to be a spiritual explorer and to value my own inner sense of truth. And I started to feel more comfortable in my own skin and who I was inside. That even if I didn't have all the answers, and even if the church didn't either, there was a place I belonged, and we were all on this quest together. Then my parents moved 150 miles south to Cape Cod, and their new business of trying to run a greenhouse, growing plants, made going to church unrealistic, and there wasn't a good UU church nearby. But I stayed at UU in my heart, and I continued to explore. And I've always had 2 sides to my nature, the magical intuitive side and the logical analytical side. And my goal in life is to try and figure out how to use the 2 sides of my brain together. So instead of going in circles, I can go in a straight line. In college, I studied biology. I was interested in ecology and evolutionary biology. And I discovered that a lot of the complexity of ambiguity of doing real science, especially biological science, is very different than what you learn in high school. In high school, it's like, these are the facts, and this is what you know. But when you're really doing science, it's all about, the clever part is not coming up with the theories. Anybody can come up with theories. But how do you can you create a way of testing that theory that tells you something about that reality? And then you have to convince everybody else that happened. So you can't test the theory of evolution, for example. You can only test the things the theory of evolution predicts. You can't test an ecosystem. I wonder if this ecosystem is how is this ecosystem doing this year compared to last year? Let's put it on a scale and find out. There's questions, and so the clever part of science is coming up with these things. You run simulations. What can you capture that's essential in a simulation? What you can measure the size of the animals that grow in different environments, assuming you can catch them. You can make you can make a strong case for evolution. You can make a strong case for different kinds of ecological progress, but it's hard to make it an absolute firm thing. It's not like physics where you can just do an experiment and get a result. And I think even in physics, they have some of the same kind of issue. So I really took a lot home from that, of this idea of how do you test the untestable? And so after college, the focus on thinking about that has been hugely useful in how I ultimately approached Reiki and spirituality today. So much about what we know about different spiritual paths and about different ideas about the unseen world were based on people who had ideas, but not necessarily direct experience. whether it's religion's views on God or stories about UFOs or things about the human energy system. There's all these books are full of things that are quoting what other people said and their grand theories, and I wanted something a little more experiential. Long before I discovered Reiki, I started taking Tai Chi and Qigong. And I found that when you do a class with a Western trained teacher, they spend a great deal of time trying to convince you that Qi is real. Qi is the Chinese word, Qi is the Japanese word, it's the same stuff. But they try to spend a lot of time convincing you it's real. If you train with somebody who's more of an Asian trained teacher, then they don't even bother telling you it's real at all. It's like, we're gonna use this today. We're gonna practice this today. And they just sort of jump right in and tell you how to develop it and use it. And so one of the most common exercises for that is creating energy balls. So whether you are here or whether you're home, let's do it. So what I want you to do is, first of all, I am really charged up right now. And because of that, this may be easier than it is for you to do at home because it's a field effect. All of our energies are layering on top of each other. Just like in meditation, I think it's easier to meditate in a group than it is when you're home because you get to meditate. Your energy field builds on the top of the other energy fields of the people there. Okay, so the energy ball exercise. These are your hands. Okay, this is air. I love my controls. This is air. See how air feels? And now bring your hands together and see if you can feel a little shift in density, a little shift in heat or vitality and so forth between your hands. Now, the traditional way of doing it is actually to rub your hands together. Go like this. And this activates all the acupuncture points on your hands and fingers. Now, I find a good number of you are probably already natural healers. And you may find that this works just fine without a whole lot of pretense. But just rubbing your hands together is a great way of doing it, and then playing with it again. Yeah. And a lot of you, I can tell, are feeling the energy balls here. Excellent. Now, if you want, you have a neighbor. What I want you to do is go to your neighbor and go like this. And see if you can feel the energy from your neighbor's hands. And if you're not sure, what I want you to do is just tilt sideways, because this is air again, right? So if there's a difference between this and this, what you're feeling is the key. And at home, there's you can do this distance as well, same thing. So after you've taken the energy and played with it a moment, now I want you to do is if you have any areas of issue on your body, you know where they are. Anything you don't mind grabbing in public if you're in here. Go ahead and just place your hand. Don't even touch yet. Just start with an inch or so above and see what that feels like. Welcome to my world. Okay, so I knew this was happening. Now, at the same time, after college here, I'm going to science fiction and fantasy conventions. And then I started going to pagan and new age weekends because they were often the same people that went to both kinds of things. And I was going for years. Now, these weekends are hour-long, have all these hour-long events where people give talks on whatever they thought would be interesting as a metaphysical topic to give a talk about. Because of these events, I'm a great person to talk to if you want to know a little bit about a lot of things. So at some of these weekends, I might go to a talk on crystal healing, or I might go to a talk on Italian witchcraft, or I might go do a talk on labyrinths, or Greek paganism, or Hindu mysticism, and different deities in the Hindu tradition. I went to all these different things. And I was at one of these in the summer of 1992, and I was bored. Now, things that I do on purpose in my life almost never lead anywhere. This is going to be a great new thing in my life. Those almost always peter out. The things that I do by accident, the things that I do just because, those are the dangerous things, because those are the things that tend to take my life and put it into new directions I would never have thought of. And so I went to the hour-long version of the hour-long mini class of Reiki on a theory I had never heard of it, and that was as good a reason to go below an hour as any. And I said that Reiki was a kind of energy healing. It started in Japan in the early 1900s. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And they said, yeah, it's very intuitive to use, and it supports the body's ability to heal itself, and it works with the body in a way that can't cause harm, and you could use it on yourselves and others, including at a distance. And I was really only half listening, because I fully expected it to be more what I already knew, more the little energy ball trick, just with a Japanese twist. But instead, there was something else. And so I always could do the energy ball trick a little, but I was never very good at it. And so then they did this process called an attunement, and suddenly my hands changed. And it's probably too far away to believe there, but actually I get modeling on my hands. I actually get a physical effect in my hands when I really start channeling Reiki. That's not the way my hands normally are. And I can feel the energy going through. And I have since learned to become a Reiki teacher, and I have done the same process. This process permanently turns on the healing ability of people's hands. And I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense to my logical left brain, and yet it works 100% of the time. I'm hooked. One of the things that scientists and mystics share in common is that desire to stand on the abyss of reality and look over the edge and say, what is there? What does not make sense, but what results am I getting that don't make sense based on what I currently know? And what can I do to try and figure it out? And so I had to spend time figuring out. And so while my entire life, I'd been kind of a dabbler. I'd tried a class here, class there, learned all these different things. But when I encountered Reiki, I was hooked. And because my first exposure, Reiki is normally done as a 2-day class just for the intro levels. And mine only was like an hour each. But because my first exposure to Reiki were so short, I knew I didn't know everything. And I've been overcompensating ever since, and continuing to learn as much as I could. So I learned from multiple teachers. I ended up going to Japan and spending time both learning Japanese style of Reiki and spending time myself communing on the mountain where Reiki started. I have my Karama book and my Reiki manuals are over there, and you can look at them after the service if you want, and they're all available on Amazon. And it was amazing, and it's continued to be amazing, and it's continued to be that intuitive thing that just really keeps me focused and going. Most books, so I started collecting all the books on Reiki, and at one time I owned all the Reiki books out there in print. Now, it's like any book on a subject like this. If you have one book, you know what you're doing. If you have 2, you're not sure. And if you have 3, you start developing a sense of humor, or else banning books, pick one. And so I found that while the books agreed on the essentials, there were all these little details. And ultimately, it started me on the path of even teaching my students to not be that brittle, because I had started training people in Reiki at this point by trying to get them to test their own assumptions. And so one teacher says to do something one way, and another teacher says to do it another way. Say, what an interesting idea. Let's test both ways and see what happens. Whereas so many other people are like, well, we have to follow what our teacher says. What do they know? And so having this experimental approach was really, really important. So I got to trust the energy, to send Reiki to everything, and let God sort it out. The Reiki is almost a form of prayer. So I became a teacher for the International Center for Reiki Training, and I had to teach by their rules, or at least I was supposed to teach by their rules for 20 years. And, I kept finding things that fit my intuition that weren't in the book. And so ultimately in 2015, I had to figure out which am I going to follow, the way they tell me to do things or the way I feel. And so, of course, being a good you, I decided I'm going to do it my own way. And I tried, in my own books, I try to have as little as possible be because the teacher said so as possible. So I figured that's a good way of approaching this. So on a daily level, I find that Reiki is a kind of prayer with feedback, that I can send distance healing to things. And you can even get a sense of whether that's the right approach or not, of something that's going to be happening in the future. I'm not that good at that. I'm not that psychic, but I'm able to do really a lot of great work with what I have. When I get caught up in the cares of the world, and then I find suddenly I forget about Reiki. It's amazing how easy it is to forget about the most powerful thing in your life. You just go on to other stuff. And then somebody does a bit of Reiki on me, or something catches my attention, and suddenly I'm right there again and feeling connected to the center of my own life as well as connected to the world around me. When I hear about a friend having a health issues, it's wonderful to be able to offer to help, not just stand by, but being able to help. And so much of conventional healthcare is about going to the experts. And even so much alternative healthcare is about going to experts. And one of the things that I love about Reiki is that you are enough, and that you have this in your hands, and it gives you something you can offer. I just had this happen last week. I've been a tour guide at Hearst Castle, and I'm not going to tell you names because I doubt you know him, but who knows? And he hasn't. But I have a tour guide who's been having issues that have been preventing him from giving tours, and so he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. And it's something that affects the mitochondria of the cell, and he just has no energy to do more than like 2 hours for stuff a day. And so I offered to do Reiki on him. He knew less about Reiki than you guys did. Absolutely nothing. He just came because I said, show up. So I did Reiki on him, and it is not like 100% better. I wish it was one of those stories, but he started being able to actually have the energy to call the chiropractor. And he said, normally that would have taken me 2 weeks to even get up the nerve to call to make an appointment, and it just kind of happened. And he's starting to have energy again. And so I'm hoping, but just for him and I to be able to have something that I can offer him, and that the people I train can offer, is just hugely powerful. So on a more profound level, I periodically have moments of awe, that moments of knowing, that feeling I'm part of the web of the divine plan, even if I don't know what it is yet. I at least feel like I'm connected in there, and that in some small way I'm helping. In some small way, I'm making the world a better place, and I'm helping other people make the world a better place. And so whether you explore Reiki or some other kind of energy work or conventional prayer, or just do your own thing with your hands, my hope is that my story will give you some sense that there really is more than world than meets the eye, and that my experience will encourage you to include that as part of your own spiritual path. And to thank you, and by extension, the UU community, for helping me set my feet on this path. It has been a great adventure, and I'm glad to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That was very, very interesting. Okay. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please remember, we are a self-sustaining congregation and provide all financial resources for our many ministries. We recognize the spiritual value of generosity and invite you to participate. If you are viewing this service remotely, please use one of the methods shown on the screen. Thank you. our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Now let us sing in praise of our UU faith tradition.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Join us in singing the closing hymn, This Little Light of Mine, number 118.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yeah. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Unitarian for God's frozen meat.
What was that? Who said Unitarians are
God's frozen people.
God's frozen people? Okay. All right. As we prepare to extinguish the chalice, let us recite the valediction. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. After the closing words, we encourage you to take a seat for questions and comments. Now let us form a circle and join hands. Jessica?
He's coming. Just in time. All right, just in time. So, one more. So at the UU Church in Danvers, they did the same closing words every time. And even though I have not been to that church in decades, they are carved in my heart. May love surround you. May joy gladden you. May peace lie deep within. And may your lives and the lives of all you touch go well. Beautiful.